3 people were killed and at least 3 others were injured and wounded in yet another school shooting, this time in Saugus High School in Santa Clarita, California. Authorities later said that the suspect was identified, and I'm not going to share the name of the suspect in this case. He attempted to kill himself with a gun, and he was actually he survived so far, and he has been taken to the hospital. But I do want to focus a little more on what happened during the shooting and who the victims are. So a 16-year-old girl and 2 14-year-old boys were killed, ages 14 and 15, transported to area hospitals for their gunshot wounds. Their identities have not been released, so we don't know the identities of the victims because they're minors. Authorities described the gunman as a 16-year-old boy, and he turned the gun on himself after opening fire in the school's quad. Law enforcement say the teen, who has been identified, is being treated at a hospital for a gunshot wound to the head. Now, with that said, I do think it's important to give a voice to the students who experienced this traumatic event. Let's take a look.
The first one went off, and then after a while, the 2 more went off right after, and everybody just started running.
And people were tripping and falling. I was trying to help them up.
We heard them a little more distant and not, like we could kind of tell with our ears, like in what direction it kind of was, but still.
It was absolutely terrifying.
I never looked back, and we just all kept running. Like we were all helping each other, like, oh, do you have a ride? Do you have a ride? Because like it was just like a big group of us just running through this neighborhood.
For it to happen here, it's just, I can't even comprehend it. It doesn't make sense to me how this could happen here.
It's just such a devastating story. And the students also talked about how they had been training to deal with this type of situation. They had gone through various drills and they knew exactly what to do. They knew to stay calm. They knew how to barricade themselves. And that is the society that they're living in. It doesn't matter which state you're in. It doesn't matter how strong the gun laws are in a particular state. When you're living in a country that has some states with incredibly loose gun laws. And look, we're gonna get to gun control in just a second, but I do wanna give you some more details on what happened during the shooting. Now, the police captain explains the situation in more detail in the next video. Take a look.
Upon arrival within 2 minutes, Santa Clarita deputies recognized that it was an active shooter situation and conducted a rapid deployment onto the school premises. When they reached the quad area, they discovered 6 persons who were suffering from gunshot wounds. These were all students of the high school. All the students were triaged and transported to a local hospital. The suspect was later identified as one of the victims who was found in the quad. He is identified as a 16-year-old male whose birthday is today. The weapon that he used was recovered at the scene. It's a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, which had no more rounds in it, had no more bullets in it. He is a resident in the 22900 block of Sycamore Creek Drive in Santa Clarita. That location was contained by sheriff's deputies, and a cursory search was done to identify any other potential victims which may be at the location. There were none there. It is now being contained. A search warrant is being written, and it will be conducted to process that scene for evidence.
Obviously, an incredibly traumatic event for educators, for students, for parents who didn't know whether or not their child was a victim of this mass shooting, whether or not their child was wounded or killed as a result of this shooting. And this is happening all too often. This should not be commonplace in any country, let alone a country where the majority of Americans do want common sense gun control. The majority of Americans do want background checks. They do want to pass common sense legislation that protects Second Amendment rights, but also ensures that guns do not end up in the hands of the wrong people. Now look, this is a developing story. We don't know yet how this teenager got his hands on this gun. But what we do know is that it's far too easy to gain access to guns. And so it is the time to have a real discussion about common sense gun legislation. Any politician who tells you that it's unacceptable to have that discussion right now is a coward because they're afraid of donors. They're afraid of Republicans who will be angry at any type of effort to push for gun control. And while this shooting was happening, by the way, this is what the NRA tweeted. Now, it's separate from the shooting. They're not tweeting in response to the shooting. But this is the type of propaganda you see on their Twitter account on a regular basis. As Democrats push confiscation, October gun sales jumped 10%. Last month, we crowned Berhow AR-15 Salesman of the Month after the massive increase. We think the current Democrats still standing deserve Gun Salespeople of the Year. So they're gloating about it, and it's pathetic.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.